Good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we all can relate to this. We get home from long days of school and other activities. We go to our room, we turn on our light, put our phone to charge. If we have a computer, we go on our computer, maybe watch our favorite YouTuber for some time. Maybe if a favorite show comes on around that time, so we watch that for a bit. Go to the kitchen, get a snack, whatever snack, your favorite snack, and go back to watching our show. Contributing to a huge problem known as global warming. Global warming is a frequent and issue that's talked about and very well known, but for as frequent of an issue that is talked about, not very much is being done about it. From what I've learned from my climate change class and research that I've done by myself, I can tell you that with complete confidence, if we don't do anything about it soon, we're screwed. We're all going to grow old one day, and when we do grow old, it isn't going to be easy to live in a hot climate, and we all have loved ones, so commit to something that's bigger than yourself and take actions for them. What I'm going to talk about today are how climate is affecting us, what our world's going to look like if we continue to go on this pace, and what you can do to solve it. First thing is how it's affecting us today. On the news, you guys probably heard about the wildfires. A wildfire recently was the Camp Fire. Named Camp Fire. That was in Northern California. This wildfire killed 83 people, and 563 people were reported missing, so those numbers are likely to go up. 153,336 acres were scorched, so it's a lot of land. Heat waves are more common and more extreme in temperature events, making it harder for older people to live. There's more evaporation, so a lot of there's more droughts, and dry pieces of land are more frequent because the areas that don't get a lot of rainfall are getting dried up. Heavy rainfall events are more current, so floods are also more current, which are displacing a lot of people. And hurricanes are more frequent, which are killing a lot of people and very costly. Next thing I'm going to talk about is how it will affect our world if we continue to go through space. Sky, a UK news source, did research on how our planet will look like if we continue to go on this pace. So they did it in terms of degrees. So keep in mind that a degree rise is more significant in the way it affects our planet. In a 2-degree world, glaciers will be missing, rivers will all dry up, and in a 3-degree world, more people will die. No, it's in a 2-degree world, more people will die. In Europe, 2003, when the temperatures were 2.3 degrees higher, 5,200 people died from what are now normal summers. A 3-degree world, plants stop absorbing CO2, which will cause temperatures to rise again, another 1.5 degrees, which will cause a tipping point for global warming. A 4-degree world, the Amazon will lose 85% of its rainforest, and hurricanes will become way more deadly, killing way more people, killing a lot of people actually. Yeah. And next thing I'm going to talk about are what we can do to stop it. We can start small, just with like our normal habits. So if you're in the kitchen or not in the kitchen, you notice the lights on, because it does take coal to burn electricity. Not a lot of people are aware of that. Maybe turn off the light. If you notice taking the bus is the same as going to school, just take the bus. And when you get older, maybe think about investing in renewable energy because it's coming a lot cheaper. Josh Gabatatis, a UK freelance writer for Environment and the UK from Independent, which is a UK news, stated that renewable energy will be cheaper in 2 years. So pretty much by so now it's 1 year because the article was written in the beginning of this year. So it doesn't take a lot to help. It's just up to you. Our planet, we're already seeing a lot of effects in what's happening to our planet today. A lot of people are dying. A lot of people are being displaced. Our future doesn't look good. Like any problem, if you don't do anything about it, it's only going to get worse. And there's something you can do about it. By starting small and starting with your habits and maybe investing in renewable energy, you can save the world and possibly save our planet.
All right, so Isaac's supposed to do the oral evaluation. Isaac, what did you think? Isaac, you're not here? Well, that makes it easy. All right, well, the example that you have at the beginning is an interesting one because I think everybody can relate to it, but you need to explain a little bit more how it's connected to the subject that you're talking about. It sounds, my guess is that mostly it's concerned with wasteful energy use and the suggestion that that wasteful energy use is contributing to global climate change is the argument that you're making there. That just needs to be a little bit clearer. Your subject, on the other hand, is pretty clear. You've got a good detailed preview of what the structure is going to be, so I appreciated that. The wildfire statistics are good, but I think you need to have a little bit better data showing us that the wildfires are in fact connected to global warming. There seems to be an assumption that there's a connection there. Why are the wildfires that we're having now different than the wildfires that we've had over the past couple of hundred years that we are aware of? And I don't know how many were before that, but your argument needs to suggest that there is some difference here that is definitely attributable to global climate change. As it is, it's a very generic kind of argument. The rainfall argument sounded a little confusing because at one point you say there's not going to be adequate rainfall, and another spot you say there's going to be excessive rainfall and flooding. And I assume that this is probably a disruption in where the rain is occurring and when it is occurring, but it wasn't clear, and that sounds contradictory. Wait a second, are we getting more rainfall or less rainfall? You need to be clearer on that. There's no sources that have been cited on that material yet. So everything up to that point is largely an assertion on your part. Some of it is generic material on global climate change that I think people may have been maybe somewhat familiar with, but I think if you're trying to be convincing, you really want to cite those sources there. Then what you do is you cite Sky News to give us these scenarios about what's going to happen if there are temperature changes of 2 degrees or 3 degrees or 4 degrees, and we've got some interesting scenarios that are drawn up. Again, I think it would be helpful if the Sky News information was based on something, but the description of the scenarios is pretty good. What's the likelihood that we're going to get temperature changes in those ranges that are being talked about? I think that's a little bit iffy. You need to have better information on that. You do have a comparison at one point to what happened in 2003, and I'm not exactly sure. Well, 2003, that's 15 years ago. It was a hot summer apparently, and people died because they got a little warm or they were unprepared for it. And I guess the temperatures have dropped since 2003, but now you're suggesting that they're going to go back up. That's a little bit confusing. I think what you need to say is, we had an example of what happened in 2003 when temperatures spiked suddenly. That's the kind of thing that's going to happen more frequently in the future. And in fact, those 2003 temperatures, instead of it being an exceptional case, will become the norm. That's the way you want to kind of describe what's going on there. Your negative visualizations are pretty solid. The solutions, I think they're only partially suggested, and there's not any information that shows that they're going to make a difference. At the moment, I don't know how fast climate change is coming. I don't know how certain it is. I don't know what impact human activity has on it, and I don't know what changes we could make that would alter that. I just know that you have given us something, kind of a negative vision of the future that certainly should motivate us to take some actions, but how those actions would work and make a difference, I think you need a little bit more proof on that. The presentation issues, you still have the tendency to kind of look away from the audience. You look down in front of us, you look off to the corners, and I thought at the beginning of the speech you were going to be doing a little bit better, but you were consistently kind of, like I said, glancing down. You also have the hand washing thing that you do with your hands. You need to get a little bit freer with your gestures and use some potential indicators, because that's where your anxiety is coming out. Your voice, though, I think is pretty solid in conveying information. Like I said, I thought you had some good sources for the negative scenarios, and you had a couple of pieces of information when you were talking about the solution. You needed better evidence in the first part of the speech. There was a good preview. So you're doing some things pretty solidly, and other things need a little bit more attention. All right, thank you.